Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're here today with Vesa, an amazing
Hello, everyone.
artist and now crypto artist. So we're going to talk through your latest piece.
When I first went to your website, when we first started talking, and this is maybe like a half a year ago, or is it over? It's longer now.
It was bang on the hard fork of Bitcoin Cash. It was in November we spoke.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
right. Right. Well, anyway, when I first went to your website and I saw just, crypto and culture, I saw the word culture on the top of that page. That was exactly, I felt like, yes, more of this.
Yeah.
Like, because it's that next decade. We're starting something new now. And I feel this might be the kind of bridge of how it must have felt like for those who first started and being involved with Bitcoin. And maybe doesn't feel so rewarding to begin with, but I also, because coming from the art world, or the absence thereof, because I found it to be super corporate and boring and stifling, and the most uncreative place on earth is the art world, surprisingly to many people. And I went through that wasteland. It's a fucking travesty. I went through that wasteland for about 8 years, and then when I finally got to crypto a couple of years ago, the opportunities immediately started getting in, and despite the atmosphere of the art world, I still managed to make a lot of things happen. But that was through sheer will and determination, and even putting my life on the line, literally, to make something happen, so that we could generate something that I feel resembles art. But that was immediately picked up by the crypto world, and the entrepreneurial spirit, and the kind of recognizing of quality, and the recognizing of we're all building this together now. All of the support started coming in, and maybe not in monetary terms immediately, but it's opportunity. It's light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, hey, come and do this. Maybe we can put this together. Maybe that works out. Like this phone call. You wouldn't find this at the art world. They just not even close. Nothing like it. So I feel very optimistic and great about that. And finally, I can really start to tell what I actually feel about the fucking art world when I'm here, because, none of my stuff is invested in that in the slightest. They're going to have to come begging to my door to try and get me in afterwards, when they realize how important this whole thing is, what just happened here.
Yeah.
And all the different solutions, the technological solutions, but also what I really love about it is that I tried to be a part of the hippie community a while, and I did some psychedelics and whatever, and it was all hippie dippy love and some whatever, but there was a worldview, but there was no action. And then if it was just entrepreneurs, it might have been too much about the bottom line and maybe no ideology. Or then if there was all these different kinds of communities that were in one way great, but I couldn't fit into almost any of them. It's in crypto where I found the entrepreneurial spirit. I found people who really genuinely care about things, and they want to make the world a better place. They have the psychedelic point of view of the world, and they still do action. They don't sit around in a drum circle wishing it was better. They actually go and do it. And sometimes they have the fucking resources to put their money where their mouth is as well. So this is the kind of atmosphere where I want to be involved in. I mean, this is amazing. I feel ever so privileged. And then at the same time, this is almost the coolest part, is that if the definition of crypto to me, when I have to explain it to someone in 30 seconds, if it is the separation of state and money, for 6,000 years, kings and governments have controlled the issuance of money, and now you can have your own coin. And it's as important as the separation of church and state, but we don't know it. We're in the trenches of it. So I feel like I'm a war photographer. As a storyteller, right?
Yeah,
I get to be right in the deep of it, but also have the long view of things and tell these stories as they unfold in front of us.
Yeah.
And I get to make obviously my monetary interest is making something that is very rare and very special to those people who might have done well. And it all supports that circle that I keep doing more good stuff and get to have my family and all this. But it's also, my mission is mass adoption, because it's those stories, when they're shown somewhere in 30 seconds, I can communicate something really complex for people who might have only heard about Bitcoin in passing, and make sense.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing about the art world, is that the reputation of it is that none of it makes any sense whatsoever, and you have to pretend like Emperor's New Clothes, that a few lines on something red that looks like a ketchup accident is actually worth $36 million. just referencing a certain project that I hate with a passion. So this is, I get to make sense. People get to like it. It gets to improve the reputation, at least to me, of art itself, and tie it back to the Renaissance days of when art was pushing humanity forward, like the Da Vinci and Michelangelo days, the imagining the transcendent, the beautiful, the studying human anatomy, and in this case, studying where we could be going next.
Yeah.
And I've said this example many, many times, but I think it's still worth repeating, and especially for those who might be in the crypto war trenches amongst each other, is like that at one point in my life, this is maybe 15 years ago, so I was very good at defining what I didn't want, but I wasn't so good at defining what I wanted. And a friend of mine from NLP, this practitioner guy, he gave me an example that, Vesa, your brain works a little bit like this. It's kind of like the taxi driver, and you're in the back seat and you got to tell it where to go. Like, imagine this: if you hopped into a taxi and the driver asked you, "So where do you want to go?" and you said, "Well, not to the airport." Well, the taxi. So what? Like home? Where? And you said, "No, not home. Not the train station. No." How long will it take before the brain throws that guy out the backseat and says, "Fuck off," because I'm busy. I've got people to take to places, So it's that kind of thing. You need to have a direction. And
Yep.
One of the things of what the art world has been doing, it's been deconstructing everything to the point that there's nothing to deconstruct anymore, and everyone's confused and nihilistic and purposeless and whatever, and it's about ugliness, and everyone's sort of lost. So I think it's for me, it's how to put not only the crypto Humpty Dumpty, but or the finance world, but us as human beings and where we're going, and how to utilize our spirit, how to utilize our technology, and how to all of these amazing things that we now have at our disposal. We need to have a vision of where we're going, and it might not be that which we set in, like that's the goal. We're probably not going to get there what the goal was, but we need that direction and the propulsion in order to start going somewhere that is going to be positive.
Correct.
And as an 80s kid, that's what I'm missing. Like in the 80s, growing up with Ghostbusters and the culture was very optimistic, and it's been so nihilistic for so long now. And I think the art world has played a part in that, of why we feel so deconstructed. And it's so construction is important to me.
Awesome. So how about you talk us through the piece behind you?
Oh yeah, well that ties into the construction as well. This is a little bit esoteric, I suppose. I tried to make sense of a very complicated situation because 10 years ago I was involved with a documentary film about the monetary system. In about 2006, 2007, I learned how the fiat monetary system works and the central banking system, and how essentially the gold standard had been removed, the Federal Reserve, all that jazz, which is familiar here in the crypto world. But I learned it, and I immediately realized that this is super important. And ever since then, I've been trying to make sense of what's real, what's conspiracy theory, how does it work. And I was commissioned by the Litecoin Foundation to make this art piece for them. They didn't say what to do. I just wanted to have a very lofty art piece, because we have this mission to go and do a keynote and a performance and an art show and show this piece in Vegas at the Litecoin Summit in late October. So I thought, okay, what if I had the history, present, and future of money in one art piece that tries to imagine the past and what was maybe useful about it, where are we now, and where could we go if the outcome was as positive as possible. So it starts really here from where I can't see. Yeah, that's the sort of pyramid structure that is in the dollar bill. So that's the dollar bill in one way, but it's also the Jekyll Island where they made those secretive bankers made this deal, and the Federal Reserve was born. I think it was 1901 or something along the lines, about 100 years ago. And basically it has the all-seeing eye in the Illuminati, and you can go as deep as you want into the conspiracy land on the internet as you want. But there's also the lobster, the Jordan Peterson healthy hierarchies, the tulip mania, all those kinds of things that are tied into the old monetary system idea of what we right now have in the form of fiat currencies. And it's an interesting one because you find some characters who say that this is what actually really went down, but those characters usually are also associated with a bunch of stuff that is very hard to get behind or for them to say that they credibly know what happened. But then you have like the Senator Ron Paul, who goes and asks the Fed directly, and he can't get straight answers as to what happens and how it functions, because it's a private company, but it's also a corporation. It's like an amalgam of different things that is really hard to make sense of. So it's like a question. It's like, what is good about the old system? What is bad about it? What do we need to let go of? And how much of it is real or not? And it's all happening behind the Statue of Liberty, because the meeting that took place before was then, and most of our money, if you think, we don't get educated in our public education system about what money is. We might get to know what money does, but we don't really understand the system or how it came to fruition. So it's almost like this invisible process, and you have to be quite brave in order to go down that rabbit hole to try and understand what the hell that whole thing is. And if you do, you might get excluded from a lot of social happenings, because you're then in this sort of danger zone. Also, there's danger to it if you go and ask those questions, that's for sure.
Right.
So on the right side of it, I kind of thought, so what is to counter that? So there's this sort of motherboard and electric circuit made Trojan Horse that is there, and it's the form of crypto, really. It is coming to the other side of the dollar now, into the scene, and that's also happening behind the scenes of the majority of the public, because most don't give a shit. And especially in countries where they have a relatively functional currency, they've never even asked the question what money is. So it's sort of, again, happening behind the Statue of Liberty in a certain kind of way. And you could call it the monetary wars or something like that, like Andreas Antonopoulos does. But I tried to marry it together with, because the inventor Nikola Tesla was a big inspiration for a long time, as a mystic and a scientist and an amalgam of many cool things. And he famously said that if you only understood the significance of the numbers 3, 6, and 9, you would have the keys to the universe. And the idea with this whole thing is that we've now brought in crypto as a Trojan horse, and it could be married together with universal law, if there is such a thing. And maybe it is in those numbers, maybe it is in the how it's all coded together, or the algorithm, because I think the universal language of the world is mathematics, and we've only come to understand it some tens of thousands of years ago or something as a species, and that's extending it a long time. So it's a question of those, because the pyramid is also the most stable structure that we have in the world. I studied a bunch of stuff about Egyptology through John Anthony West and Graham Hancock and those kinds of adventure fellows who went and studied the Egyptian ancient culture from a slightly more maybe outlaw type of way. But that again made much more sense to me. So it's to say that the pyramid is only bad it's incorrect. Even just physically, it is the best structure that we can build. It's the most stable structure. So is there something about these hierarchies that get corrupted or uncorrupted? It's a meditation. It's not an answer to it. But what I know for sure is that all of this is happening to only a very few people who really understand of what's going on, or they've taken an interest. So it is. And what's at stake right now, it feels nothing less than our liberty, our freedom, or where we're going as a species. And the Statue of Liberty is really, it's reaching to what looks like the Earth, but it's two images put together. It's the Earth and the Moon, because everyone in crypto is trying to reach the Moon, and it's symbolic that it's what we're really trying to get is liberty on Earth. What we're trying to get is as much responsible citizens that are aligned with the healthy hierarchy of the universe and get along as well as possible, so that we're free to express ourselves, to make ourselves the pursuit of happiness to the degree that it's ever going to be possible. And it's that I've used it in a couple of art pieces already, but I think again that's something worth repeating many times, is that when we went to the moon originally physically, what was important about it was not reaching the moon, it was getting that picture of Earth and seeing how fragile it looked in the amongst all that darkness and those glittering little stars, and how all of a sudden this mass of Earth that looks like a flat surface here is just a little dot.
Yeah.
And that was important. And I think that's what it's trying to reach to, is that we would have, because the whole of the sky is made out of blocks, and each of them are painted consciously a little different. And that's maybe a comment upon, yes, I totally agree that Bitcoin is going to be an important one. I doubt that it's going away, but I also believe in some altcoins. I believe many of them will be important in terms of the technological solutions that they're going to provide. So it's like this harmonic sort of blockchain sky that the Statue of Liberty is looking at. And it's almost invisible, because if the struggle is successful and those monetary systems that are going to be adopted by the masses aren't controlled by institutions, then we will have liberty. Mm-hmm. So it's not entirely clear to me even yet all the things of what that art piece stands for, but those are certainly they've been a part of the meditation.
Yeah, look, I mean, to me, it's I've spent a number of days looking at that piece, discussing it with you now. It absolutely sums up my experience. I came into this space with a university education in economics.
Right.
What a waste of time. I mean, but it probably took me about a year of being immersed, and I have absolutely, been immersed for a number of years now in crypto, but my knowledge of economics is light years ahead of where it was before I came into this space.
Right.
Crypto it's been such an eye-opener, and the passions that run high in the space, at its core, it really does boil down to people's different understanding of economic systems. Being in this space, I mean, God, I've almost had to find a new group of friends. For anyone watching this and contemplating coming into crypto, what I would say is it's addictive. If you're here long enough, there's no return. It literally, for me, it took about 6 months, but to find the various community leaders, to listen to what they were saying, to understand what these different projects were about, primarily for me what Bitcoin has been about, and then I was hooked, absolutely hooked. My understanding of economics is, I'd say it's pretty good now, definitely compared to what it was. It also, therefore, it gives you a much better perspective on our current political landscape and what really is going on there. As far as entertainment value, it's second to none. For me to go and watch a movie now, I simply can't do it. I'm itching to get back out and see what the latest happenings in our wonderful space are. It's relentless. It's endless. It's got everything.
There's the Joseph Campbell. It feels like it's a legendary story. It's almost like the hero's journey, whether you get invited into Star Wars or Lisa in Wonderland or whatever. You go down the rabbit hole and a journey starts that you can't stop. No. And or should you? It's not for everyone, but those who it calls, it's an immediate landslide. It's
right. And you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Help me! I'm quite happy to be in here. It's got a little bit of everything. It's heartbreaking. It's one hell of a roller coaster. At the moment, it's a magical time on so many fronts. From I guess while my media hasn't exactly been financially rewarding for me, what it has done is the community certainly knows who I am, and I get invited to some amazing events. I've just been on a Mediterranean cruise with a company called Coins Bank, and some of the really big players in the space were on there. So I've forged some lifelong friendships on that. I'm sure you've had the same experience, going around the world, meeting all these amazing characters. There's some really special people. I think the comedy of the scams and so forth. I know a lot of. I got to be careful what I say here, because obviously a lot of people got burned. But that, to me, there was so much comedy involved there. It literally was, and you just don't see as many of these people around now. I think that these days you've actually got to bring something to the table, or you're going to be found out pretty quickly. So,
Sure.
The field is shrinking. I think the people and companies that really will transform society are staring us in the face right now. And certainly over the next few years, I think we're going to see some big changes. And also, as much as when I talk about, these scams and the comedy of them and so forth, I think it's always important to remember that, it was a new way for people to fund a project. So while obviously a lot of people took advantage of what was going on, it also gave the opportunity to a lot of young entrepreneurs to try things. And I'm sure something great will pop up. We've already got some great things. I think Bitcoin is just incredible. I think some of these other blockchains, and I'm really just starting to explore a lot of these other things. The Ethereum community is even though I've been in the space for a good number of years, that's still quite, that's quite new to me, and learning their culture and meeting the people involved there is, that's very exciting. I've been very much a Bitcoiner. Now I've obviously got the problem of, there are 3 Bitcoins. In fact, there's about 80, but three main ones. And, how do I report on this as a journalist? Do I get very involved in giving my own opinion on things, which is somewhat of a dangerous game, especially right now? I'm probably going to go with giving opinions, I think. I'm still going through it's fascinating when and I know you've been heavily involved in production at various points in your life. When you're going frame by frame, editing material, you get to see who people are. So,
yeah, sure.
I got some thoughts on some of the big names and characters. And look, ultimately, within the Bitcoin space, I haven't really seen any bad eggs. There's a lot of tribalism, but ultimately this is an open source code, and we've ended up with 3 main Bitcoins. And my attitude, look, in a nutshell, is I think everyone has the right to fork the code, to hard fork it, and go off with their own project. And of course, you don't have to support that other project, but some of the really nasty behavior that goes on from within all the camps needs to calm down a little bit, everybody.
But that's sort of, maybe just to bring it back to the lofty thing of before, of the spiritual perspective of it all. It's like, if you're, it just, there needs to be some sort of a grounding in order to, and even if you go to the hippy dippy camps, most of them pretend that it's all love and light and don't bring any of your negative vibes and this and that, and it's not real. And certainly as an artist, I've been haunted by certain kind of demons all my life, and they're part of the fuel of what makes me create. And I think to a certain degree, we're all plagued by demons. And to pretend that those don't exist, or we actually need psychological tools of how to stay on the path in such a way that we don't lose them. And I suppose those original Star Wars films, they were almost like something that came to replace that sort of stifling religious thing. They came to remind of the spiritual path of how it is. You have the dark side and the light side, but in reality they mix quite a bit, and there's quite a lot of of bad, even inside the good. There's that yin and yang symbol. No matter how much Jedi you have, you'll still have that dot of dark inside of you. And if you have that, all of a sudden the illusion that you don't have any of that in you and you're just good and you're just fighting the good fight, you probably are corrupt to the point that you can't see yourself anymore. So it's that
maybe psychedelics will make the latest Star Wars films good, Vesa.
Yeah, they've been pieces of shit. I can't help it. Oh well, it's all these. They've lost their way of. Well, never mind.
What do you think's coming up for crypto? Where is the what's the overriding sort of feeling you have at the moment? What are we, halfway through 2019? Maybe a better question is where do you see it in 5 years?
I think I'm not the guy to answer in such a way that it's credible nor helpful for people listening to the whole of the cryptosphere. I couldn't see that, but one big picture that I do see, where I do have some expertise in, it just happened a while ago, and it's tied to a very cool revolution here in London. There's a free morning paper called City AM, and the resident crypto insider, James Bowater, is a very cool character. And he's managed to put, these metro papers all over the world that are handed out in the morning when you're going to the tube or buses or whatever. So he has a whole spread regularly on crypto in a mainstream publication handed out to the whole of fucking London, wow. Which is pretty incredible in and of itself. Just that is mass adoption. And what he gave me a chance to do, which would have never in a million years, the last place where this opportunity would have ever come would be from the art world. Nor would they ever have a spread like that, nor could they. But he gave me 850 words, because I write for News BTC. I've become a pretty prolific crypto writer, but it's also something that I feel very comfortable now is to write about stuff, because it gives me an opportunity to really focus and gather my thoughts. And what I put into this article is why I think the art world has lost its way a little bit, but also something that most people aren't interested in, nor have any stake in, is that I look at like the major galleries, the big galleries or the museums. I kind of look at them like JP Morgan and Fed and those, and they've pretty much, with this deconstruction motion, run the value of art that took like thousands and thousands of years to gather into the ground in the past 50 or 60 years. And they've basically deflated the value, in my eyes, almost to the point of Bolivar, but they're artificially holding up the value of many of the main stakes of those big galleries and museums. And now that the next recession, which is looming just around our corner, will be here, many of those contemporary artists now charging millions or whatever, I don't think history is going to be too kind to those investments. I don't think that the worth of that art is going to go very far. What I do think is that art, which is again involved in transcendence or imagining our future and is verified on the blockchain, reporting on these kinds of movements, like Picasso's Guernica was about war. It was war that was happening right in his country, and it was reporting on something. And that's those kinds of things will, I think, the old masters and that art will retain its value. But some of those cloak hangers with ketchup dripping off of them, I wouldn't bet my head on them maintaining their value now that the financial world and the fiat world is going to be even more in a type of crisis. So looking at seriously the investment opportunity into art that has substance, is verified on the blockchain, and is relevant culturally and helping culture and forming these relationships, I think that is to be taken seriously, not only for the art pieces as an investment, but most importantly, the value shift structure that is happening in society is that the whole of the education system we've had globally for hundreds of years now is focused mainly so that the arts are at the bottom, and then you have mathematics and maybe professorships or whatever at the top of it, and it's very good at producing efficient workers. But the reality is the majority of us are going to have very short jobs and not steady incomes, and we have to be very creative in the way that we're going to be adopting when AI starts to take out first all the low-level lawyers and the low-level kind of coders and those kind of even white collar jobs are going to go by the wayside, let alone all the millions of truckers across the world with automated cars and all that thing that is happening. Is that unless if we bring creativity from the bottom of our value system into the very height of it, not many are going to do very well, and they won't have the tools to survive in this world that is evolving so fucking quickly that it's incredible. So again, back to the article, what I said is that if you are a high-tech entrepreneur or a high financial world person, you're driving your industry forward in this kind of climate of what we have, probably the last thing that on your mind is the art world or creativity. And for a good reason, because they haven't really provided many good reasons for people to be interested other than vanity and showing off and being weirded out by something that doesn't make any sense. So if you now, the example was that Steve Jobs, when he commissioned Ridley Scott to make that 1984 advert, which is actually about crypto, not about Apple. But because he integrated creativity into the tech company to begin with, it was a social movement and a revolution from the start. It wasn't a tech company. Therefore, I believe that is why it's the biggest company in the world. So that, unless if creativity is taken seriously, most of the companies now being formed, the blockchain companies included, as well as many of the jobs that we think that are still going to be there in 5 years, in 10 years max, they're gone. Yep. So you might be forming a dead company by now, unless if you're getting really creative about it and taking it seriously. And that's, I was given an opportunity to say and basically threaten, like, I think the art world is something like $60 billion a year that is shifted about, and much of that. Can you imagine that an artist in a mainstream publication gets to go and say all of this?
Yeah.
That was incredible. So in and of itself, that was something that I really, and those are the kinds of things that are happening in crypto. So we are moving fast. But just that's something that I can say something about, and that's fairly threatening, because anyone in the art world who might be part of that whole structure in a certain kind of way, they're certainly not going to be inviting me in anytime soon. So again, any crypto anyone wants to send my way and help me keep this mission, you're more than welcome to. It's a lofty fucking thing, and I'm up against a Goliath as well. And the example that I came up with just a while ago, I had the GIF of Ethan Hunt. Tom Cruise, when he's on, I think it's the third Mission Impossible, or the second one, where he's hanging by that cliff and then he has to make that impossible turn and kind of like this and hold two things together. And it's the analogy is that no one understands crypto and no one understands art. So gentlemen only accept impossible missions, and that's what we're up against here. But it's cool, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, it looks like I'm here in Asia for the next few months. What are your movements? What's on the agenda in the near future?
Well, the big thing for me right now is like Vegas is ramping up. So I'm of course finishing this art piece, the documentary about it, and that's really cool because Charlie Lee gave me an hour of his time. We did a podcast like this, and so there's going to be a mini documentary about the substance.
Charlie, I want to come to Vegas too, Charlie.
I'll tag him in. Let's see if that becomes possible. It should definitely. So there's that, and I need to figure out a whole performance and the art exhibit form of what we're going to do for Litecoin Summit. But right after that, back to back, is also World CryptoCon, and this all happened. Shout out to Adam Williams, the co-founder of World CryptoCon, because he helped me do an incredible thing last year. We built a whole art wall, and it was the keynote and performance, and I got all golden.
I watched that. That was really special. That was awesome. I'll put a link on the screen to it.
Cool. That was a lot of fun, and I have a lot of love and respect to that guy. But basically, he said that you're free to do whatever you want at the conference, and but I can't do anything if I don't get funded. So essentially, what I have in front of me, the Litecoin Summit is funded by the foundation, and they're helping me do all of that stuff. And kudos for them, and thanks for supporting this thing. It's a big up for those guys for that. But in terms of the World CryptoCon opportunity, it's almost like a diamond level sponsorship visibility thing in associating with me and art and really doing something visible and cool there. And it depends on how much money I can have at my disposal of what I can put together. I mean, putting shows of any sort.
On that note, I mean, I know you make some amazing pieces that are hung on the walls of CEOs' offices. You know, some there's some pieces there with very large price tags on. For people who only have small amounts of Bitcoin, what what is there people could access? What price range are you operating within?
Well, this is a little bit about my business strategy, I suppose, altogether, but it's worth repeating because there's a little bit of confusion as to what's going on. Because about a year ago, still, I had a price bracket that I'd also made prints and that weren't painted on, and they were various sizes, and they went from 850 to 2,200 and up into $5,000 or something like that. And I basically, I had out of one art piece, one image, I made about 100 different kinds of copies, and that allowed me to send something a lot cheaper. But with everything that was happening, and it was really rocketing and things were falling into place, because I've been doing this for a very long time, what I finally felt comfortable in, and it was a risk, but what I wanted to do is that I took out all the cheap options, and I only left the 3 repaints and 1 metallic emulsion print that is massive. So very, very limited edition, and I raised the prices up quite a bit. So the average became about 50,000. Now, I think the cheapest on the website is something like $9,000 for a repaint, and the most expensive, well, depending on what you're going to count, it goes to up until $1 million. But basically, the average price is maybe about 3,500 or something like that. I'm thinking about whether to bring back some of those prints because it wasn't commercially yet that successful. That, you know, for example, for the last 3 months, I haven't sold a single piece. But before then, I was very comfortable for a while, and things went very well. But then, so it's a kind of cyclical thing. But I think what I wanted to do in part is to educate that I'm bringing really something quite substantial here, and this is to be taken seriously. And you literally have in the art world things that look like a ketchup accident that are sold for 36 million. So I know where this art is going, what it's actually worth. And to me, let's say if it's like the Bull and the Bear piece, the fork and flip, and the last one that is available, it's 70 grand, and it's sort of an obscene amount of money.
Your art's a store of value, quite simply.
I think I'm selling it for chips right now in terms of what I feel of where it's going to go in terms of value and whatever. But I understand I'm not greedy. I'm not playing this. I want to do this long term, but it's also a kind of education that people don't take something seriously if they think that it's too cheap. Like, for example, there's a bunch of Chinese collectors that wouldn't even look at my art because it's less than $500,000.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with the substance of it. It's nothing to do with, is it revolutionary? Is it doing something? It's none of that. It's just a certain perception is that if it's less than $500,000, it can't have anything in it. And I've spent 20 years loading this stuff with value. But because it threatens so much of what the art world is doing, they're not exactly inviting me in because, like, if it's a choice between one exceptional artist and their whole collection of 20 and what that might reflect on what they already have, then obviously they're going to maintain the 20 and leave out the one that is a volatile, in their eyes, an investment.
Yeah.
So it's a play. It's a different. It's an interesting one, but I'm definitely thinking about bringing back the cheaper options as well because many people should be able to enjoy them. But it's a trajectory. It's playing chess. It's an interesting system.
Oh, I absolutely love your art. I think it's incredible. What have you got a piece or a couple of pieces in particular that are still available that you have a real special attachment to, or even one that you've sold? I guess, is there any?
Well, I suppose there's a bunch of them. Just let me check what would be something that I haven't talked about for a while. Just a sec, buddy. Opening this up. Okay. Okay. This is super special as well. This is it's called Lakshmi Resurrection, and it's again something that I spent a little bit of time because when I first started,
you'll have to hit screen share there.
Oh, right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Second.
And
How do I
this
do?
is all on
Sorry.
your Crypto for Art website, or?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's there in the, so gallery view, no. How do I do share, whiteboard, advanced, desktop, there. Okay, can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay,
Oh wow.
this one here. So basically what this piece is, let me just shift this. Can I shift that off the way? Okay, I'll put this up there. What this is my my lady is the whitest girl you've ever seen in your life. She's albino and from up north Finland. But she went on a meditation course some years ago, and it really opened her up that when she meditates, she goes through these epic movies, kind of like Lord of the Rings style types of things. And she didn't have any connection with Hinduism, but all of a sudden these Hindu gods and goddesses started popping up, and she formed this special relationship with the goddess of health and wealth called Lakshmi. And the idea is that from her left hand, she sometimes gives this healing type of magma thing, and you can see it here in the so from her left hand, if you turn it around, that's actually my fiance there.
Oh.
A photograph of her being in this sort of healing transition, and there's always these elephants and these wonderful animals that are inhabiting this space, and she's the goddess that people go to when they have trouble with their health and their wealth. So obviously she's quite popular. And so the idea is that it's imbued with these traditional value symbols of gold and silver and platinum, and there's this chest floor and a swimming pool in the place of where she is, and she's quite sizable. She can make herself small or large or whatever, but in relation to my fiance there, she's massive. And from her other hand, she's known to rain gold. But if you really go deep into this, oh, I can't zoom in, but you will actually see that she's raining down Bitcoin. And the whole idea was that, because I was listening to the Andreas Antonopoulos talks again, that guy's just such a big inspiration.
Yeah.
So he was saying about the unbanked and how it's essentially something like the 60% of the world's population who don't have a bank account. And obviously it's the crypto is most relevant in those countries where you don't have a stable government currency. And of course, they've banned crypto altogether right now. But I thought, what would be the way of how to introduce it to the culture and to those people who most need it? And many people in India pray to Lakshmi. So if there was an image where their tradition of thousands and thousands of years, a goddess embraces this as a part of the value portfolio and something that could help the people of India, then this would be the way of how to introduce it into the culture in the divine and dignified way as it should. But there's another interesting thing about this, just to then go to the spiritual realm of it. You have these two lotus flowers that she's holding up on each of her, well, she has 4 hands in this one, but the 2 upper hands, she's holding these flowers, and there's a picture of Jesus inside of both of them. And it's something that was an interesting thing that came to Lotta in one of these meditations, is that the lost years of Jesus, from 12 to 30 or something like that we don't know what happened to him in terms of the biblical stories, or whatever. They've either been cut out or they were never there, or who knows what happened. But was that those years where Jesus actually learned everything that he brought back to the West were spent in Varanasi and somewhere else in, I think it was North Africa or something like that. But Varanasi, India, was where Jesus received that training that he then brought to the West that became Christianity. And so these 2 flowers are like that. There's a Jesus to the east and there's a Jesus to the west, and she's the connection link in between the 2. And those kinds of, I love these ideas of where you have massive separate cultures that all of a sudden, through a simple story like that, they combine together and they become, we realize again how small this world is. Like we realize how small crypto is, but when you go to all of these different spiritual realms, or you our different social circles or whatever it is. All of a sudden you find yourself in a small world. And I suppose that the big picture of our whole world is that we are in a very small world.
Correct. This is an amazing piece. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. It's something that I have it on our bedroom wall as a big piece, and Adam Williams has another one in his home, and it's a privilege to have it there as well. But it's obviously a blessing to, like, whether you believe in this stuff or not, you think it's a complete hoax, and you might be an atheist and whatever. It doesn't.
I was an altar boy. I was an altar boy. I actually lived in India for a couple of years. I've been around many belief systems.
Right.
Let's keep it crypto.
Right. No, see, here's the thing. It's like what I like about that piece as well is that if you look at the majority of crypto art, a lot of them are sort of artists becoming glorified logo polishers. You could also almost think of some of the crypto art scene is that, and I'm guilty of this as well because I know that people like those logos, but essentially you could say some of the most important artists are the ones who designed the logos, because those are the most prominent things that are in those art pieces. And it's almost like this little fanboy scene, and it's a part of the why crypto art is not taken too seriously, because it's not too serious of an art form yet. There's not much subtlety, there's not much profundity in many ways. So what I'm trying to do with that art piece as well is that crypto is a tiny part of it. It's a tiny part of a much bigger picture. And I suppose that if I have anything to bring to this whole thing is to try and keep that big picture in mind, so we maintain proportion and our sense of perspective of where we are and who we are and what we're doing, because crypto is just a tool. And maybe that's a part of the whole thing of what we've been discussing is that unless if you see it as a tool and maybe it's doing something bigger than yourself and maybe for a bigger vision, then it's easy to get lost in the trenches of whether you're for Bitcoin Cash or Satoshi Vision or whatever, and that's the thing. That's my contribution. And sometimes if I look ridiculous and stumble and go face first into the mud trying to attempt I think that's if I fail 9 times and succeed once, I'm happy to do the 9 times failing if I just succeed once, to have something that has that big picture in it.
Yeah, awesome. Look, I've really enjoyed this chat. I'd love to do it again in the very near future. It's been fantastic.
Sure, likewise.
Yeah,
brother from another mother.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So look, we'll stay in touch. I'll get this posted. I'll get the material we've done with Didi included there as well. I know you guys hit it off massively. That was a real pleasure to introduce you both. I think you're two of the more special characters in the whole crypto space. And yeah, look, let's keep showing a wider audience what the wonderful things that are happening in crypto. You guys are both very inspirational people. It's a pleasure to know you both, and I look forward to making more content with you.
Likewise, 3 Musketeers.
Absolutely, my friend.
All right, thanks for
Thank you very
watching.
much, Vesa. We'll speak very soon. Cheers, mate.
Have a good day, buddy.
You too.